The Life Talk Show is about testimonies where you can listen to be inspired, encouraged, uplifted, and entertained. It's the life. Good morning. I am your host, Ashley Cotton, for The Life Talk Show, and you'll well know that this show is about testimonies based off of Revelation 12:11, where I invite different guests from different backgrounds, different walks of life to come on and speak about their testimony, to share their story with us based off of Revelation 12:11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. So today with me, I have Jamia Chislom. She is a Christian entrepreneur that owns and operates Fitzgerald Noah Ventures, a company that helps businesses and operations management. She is passionate about mental health advocacy. After losing her husband in the Air Force veteran, tragically to schizophrenia, she realized that mental illness was impacting the Black community at an all-time rate than other ethnic groups. Tragedy has propelled her into living her best life for Christ, witnessing to others about God's peace, grace, and abundance is both a passion and a form of therapy for Jamia. She graduated from North Carolina Central University with a Bachelor's of Art in English, Literature, and Journalism. Please help me welcome Miss Jamia Chislom. Good morning. Welcome to the Life Talk Show, Jamia. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm thankful that you even thought of me to invite me. Thank you.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about regarding your testimony is losing a loved one, especially during this time of COVID-19 with the current climate that's around us. How do you begin to cope? What is the process? And so if you can just share your story with us, it'll be greatly appreciated.
Yes, I would love to share that. I know seeing that our COVID-19 rates are going up, I know they say that also a part of that is the death of it. Some people are dying, a lot of people are dying from COVID-19, and whether that be your spouse, your children, your family members. So for me, my husband passed in 2017. We, at that time, had just had a son. He was 6 months old the day that my husband passed. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which we knew about while we were dating and prior to getting married. But you're never going to be prepared for that type of death of your spouse, of someone that you believe you would spend the rest of your life with. So for me, it took deepening into my faith. I had to clear out all the things that were going on around me and dig into my faith. And I had to start meditating on his word day in and day out, the things that I knew and the things I didn't know. If I just needed to read the word at that moment when the grief was just overwhelming to me, I literally had to open my Bible and just start reading, because I knew God's presence was with me, but I had to go within him. He's always with us, but I know that deepening into him is where he needs me to be. And I knew that losing my husband was something that was he had already designed this. This was not something that took him by surprise. Yes, it absolutely surprised us and the family, but God wasn't taken by surprise. He knew this.
Take us to the very beginning where your husband is diagnosed with schizophrenia and the leading days up to him committing suicide.
So there was about 3 months prior to his death that I knew something just wasn't right. So he was diagnosed with schizophrenia in the Air Force, and then he was honorably discharged because of that. And for him, he thought he would be an airman for the rest of his life. So that's on top of being diagnosed with the schizophrenia. Now he has this trauma of losing his career in the Air Force.
Was this due to the environment perhaps that he was in? Because before the military, he was...
Absolutely, there was no diagnosis. So I believe in that, definitely in the military and the things, he was in an IT position, a technical position, so he had high-level clearance to a lot of things that were going on within the military. So I think that may have played a role in this diagnosis and the trauma that he had experienced within the military. Definitely, I believe, played a role in his diagnosis. So once he left the military, in 2010, 11. We met in 2012, and we had already talked about he had shared with me his diagnosis of schizophrenia, which many times people don't do. I mean, you may recognize some things that may be different with someone that's diagnosed with a mental illness, but oftentimes people won't tell you that they're diagnosed with mental illness because of the stigma. Oh, this person is, I don't like to use the word crazy, but this person is crazy, or they don't act appropriately, or they're not thinking appropriately. So we begin to stigmatize mental illness instead of accepting it and learning from it and helping these people to grow and love through what they're experiencing. So once my husband was diagnosed, we were married for 4.5 years prior to having our son. We had our son March 29th. My husband passed September 29th, the day our son turned 6 months old. But prior to that, 3 months to him passing, I started to notice something different going on with him. And I couldn't put my finger on it, and I would, ask him, are you taking your medicine? Are you doing the things that you're supposed to be doing? And he would tell me yes, but although I could start to see changes. There was a time where he just started just going and not, letting me know where he was. And I'm like, well, I have our son here, I need some help. So those were the times that I knew something different, because that's not my husband at all. That's not his character at all. So I knew I had to start trying to figure out, how can I help him? What do I need to do to get him the help that he needs? And then at that time, I really didn't know of any organization that was going to kind of step in and really get him the help he needed. So, when we think about the police in this time right now that we're going through, this Black Lives Matter, where when the police are called on people who are struggling with mental illness, it could lead to a death. Where we don't have the community support to say, no, we're not going to send in the police for this situation. This is out of their hands. This is not their scope. This person is struggling mentally. They need some type of specific help, some type of specific team of people instead of the police who can't handle this. So I knew even then, okay, I'm not going to call the police. My husband isn't, acting anger or having anger or aggression. He's struggling with what he's going through right now. So leading up to it, I started to see the signs of things were changing. And he's a preacher's son. He was raised in the church. That's exactly where we met. So I would talk to his family about it, his brother, and they would be trying to reach out to him to get him to kind of be present with us in this moment, help us to help you get what you need. And unfortunately, we could not get him those resources that he needed. And he ultimately took his life on September 29th, the day that our son turned 6 months old.
Can I ask how, or?
You can. He shot himself. He did.
In the home?
In his family's home, in his mother and father's home that they were selling at the time, moving into a new home, so they were getting things fixed up in the old house, which is where he was raised since he was a child. So he basically went home, I guess in his mind, to do this.
And in the process of all of this going on, what is God saying to you?
I just knew that God had something that he needed me to do, something he needed me to say around mental health in the Black community for our men and for our women. Things aren't spoken of in our community as it should be when it comes to mental health and our emotional health that drives us. We'll talk about our physical health. If I broke my leg, I'll probably put it on Facebook. Oh my goodness, I broke my leg, tripped over a block. But if I put on Facebook, I was just diagnosed with schizophrenia, it's you're shunned almost at that point. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Oh, they're going to be crazy. And it's for us. I think we have to rethink the things that we think about when it comes to mental illness and how we have looked at people or tried to categorize things that just looked outside of the norm. For me, God put on my heart that my testimony is to share how to move forward after a death like this, and how to talk about and how to help other people that are struggling with mental illness.
And right now we're going to take a break, but we're going to be back with Jamia to speak about her journey now after such a tragic incident has happened. Stay tuned. Hi, my name is Ashley Cotton, the host for the Life Talk Show, and I'm also a transformation life coach. Here's what I can offer: one-on-one coaching, laser calls to check in, and also virtual or in-person meetings. Please, you can find me on Yelp, Google, and also on social media platforms. Welcome back to the Life Talk Show, and we are still here with Jamia. Now, before the break, I wanted to talk to you about your newfound journey, right? Your purpose after the tragedy of your husband taking his life, that God has set you on a new course to speak about mental health, which is oftentimes like taboo, where we don't want to discuss it. We don't want to talk about it because of the stereotypes or the stigma that's associated with mental illness.
Right. So once my husband passed, it was obviously the most traumatic thing I had ever experienced. It was something that I didn't realize that I was going to be taking on. That when he passed, I remember standing up at his funeral, and God had placed on my heart just to say, we're going to persevere through this, but we're going to persevere through this because we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about mental illness. We're going to talk about those things that aren't discussed, where we have a space to do so. God, I don't know what it put on my heart just then to stand up at the funeral and say, we're going to start talking about mental health. We're going to open this up, and we're going to be honest about what we're experiencing and the things that are causing us maybe anguish and grief that we don't talk about. And so once God put that on my heart, I had to understand how to do it. How do I go about talking about mental illness and reaching out to people all across the globe? Because I knew that my testimony wasn't just for the death of my husband, or that trauma wasn't just for the death of my husband. It was now to impact the world with something to hold on to. And just because you have mental illness doesn't mean you are the mental illness. It's a part of who you are. Just like if you're a mother, that's not the only thing that you are. It's a part of who you are. You could be a business owner, entrepreneur, and a mother at the same time. And just like with mental illness, you could have schizophrenia and work as an IT professional, or be a father, or be a minister. There's so many parts of your life where mental illness is just another piece of it that has to be discussed instead of hidden and looked upon as something shameful. And so for me, I wanted to talk about, like in this climate now, there's so much anxiety in the world, and people are struggling. There's depression in the world. I struggle with my anxiety and depression just looking at where we stand with pandemics of losing thousands of people to this illness, and people losing their jobs, their careers. How could you not have anxiety and depression? But still, I believe. My faith is still in God, but I still have anxiety and depression because I know I need to go within my faith and deepen it. And I know for me, 2 Peter 1 is one of the main, or one of my main scriptures that I go back to, because it talks about growing in faith and adding to your faith virtue, adding to your faith perseverance, adding to your faith brotherly love and virtue and kindness. So that is how I decided that I was going to persevere, was going to add to my faith, and that would be sharing it with people. So for me, sharing that I lost my husband to schizophrenia, mental illness, that is my therapy. That is how I heal myself, and prayerfully I heal other people, help other people to heal, and to talk about their mental illness and the things that they're struggling with, to know that you can persevere through this, you can survive.
I want to switch gears for a moment, because I know when we speak about mental illness, we speak about the physical flesh aspect of that, with the chemical imbalance of the brain and the science behind it. But I want to really touch on the spiritual part, because it does say that we wrestle not with flesh and blood. And yes, exactly. And so we ignore the fact that there are demons operating in the spiritual realm, in the air. And so a lot of times that is not even talked about within the church or anywhere else. So from your perspective, can you speak about the spiritual part of that with the whole demons, and really just a little bit of what I know from books that I've read and hearing other people's testimonies with that, who can actually see into the spiritual realm where there's, demons, legions, or however many that are harping on individuals. Yes, they're present. They're oppressing and everything. So
for my husband, he did have sometimes delusions. So with schizophrenia, you'll see things that are his reality, though. So if he sees things and hears things that only he can hear, that is a part of his schizophrenia. But we do know we're operating against spiritual warfare. Our spirits are what's going to exist after we pass. These bodily, vessels are only here for now, but when we pass, we'll live on in spirit form, and we're also present in spirit form. So all these spirits, all these angels, demons are who we are battling. And so for my husband, I think that he was very much in tune with the spirit world, whether in that the good spirits and the bad spirits. And I think for him, there were these spirits of different good and bad going on within him that he was aware of, that schizophrenia will put you in contact with, because now you're seeing things differently with schizophrenia, because your brain is looking at things differently. You're looking at reality differently. And his idea of these spirits was his reality. Although I couldn't see them, I could see how they were impacting him, though. I could see his struggle with these spirits, these demons that are present every day with each of us. Mm-hmm. So for me, the spiritual warfare, it is present, and it will not, I believe, win. We have to be on the good side of Christ, and learning how to discern between these spirits, and learning how to speak goodness and kindness to one another, and realize that we're talking to spirits. As we talk to you, I'm talking to your spirit. My spirit connects with your spirit. And so we have to look at each other in that way, and not so much of the fleshly diagnosis of schizophrenia, but the God that is within. That is who we are connecting with. That is who God has given us to connect with him. It's the spirit.
And what revelation have you received from the Father, in your own prayer time, or personally, when you do come in contact with other people who are struggling with mental illness? Like, does he minister, of course, through you to them, but what does he say? Because I just believe that God is love, yes. And he cares, and he's concerned. And I know that, with all the stereotypes of what Christians are, or what they think that God is, right. Based on whatever prevalent to the times, to the culture, to, what's going on. But what does he say? Like, what nuggets does he drop in your spirit?
For me, I believe the revelation is that there are no mistakes. God did not he was not surprised when my husband took his life. I was surprised. But I think for us, we are always just taken off, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. You must have done something wrong, or your husband must have done something wrong. But it's not the fact. That's not the fact. The fact is that God is with us so that he can guide us and protect us. And he's going to do some things that'll wake us up. That'll get us right onto the path that he needs us to be, so that we can live out our divine life, the one that he had already created for me. So whenever I'm speaking to other people, I speak about peace, and I speak about love, and being honest and forgiving to one another and to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Being patient with yourself. My grief is not going to look like your grief. Mm-hmm. Some people's grief may be from, they may just have to write some things and have journals, which I agree with. For me, I've had to write. That is how I've overcome. It's writing, it's praying, it's ministering to other people. So because my grief is different than yours doesn't mean my grief is wrong. We're going to grieve differently and at different things, because we don't have the same journey. So whenever I'm talking to someone else, I let them, it's okay to grieve as long as you need to grieve. But you have to persevere through it for you. What's going to work for you? We can't just sit still in this. We have to understand God didn't give me this just to keep my mouth closed. He gave me this so that I can have my mouth open, and I can have something to say, to minister to your heart, and you to minister to mine. Mm-hmm. I believe that God didn't give us the idea of just to ourselves. We're not to ourselves people, although I can be a little introverted, but I believe that God gave me something to say, and we're not supposed to be in sitting in our pain. We're supposed to learn from it and give each other that helping hand. So for me, I have a praise. Instead of sitting in my pain, I'm going to praise. I'm going to praise God through it. And I'm going to be expectant of what he has in store for me and my son and our family. And he's using this as a vessel to honor him and to talk about those things that we're struggling with, like mental health, the ideas of suicide, the pain of trying to persevere through life and not being able to say, you know what, I have a little depression. I've been diagnosed with something.
It's interesting because I read a book maybe some years ago of Kat Kerr. And her journey, or her assignment, is that her spirit, I would say, goes up to heaven. So she takes trips up to heaven whenever God, awakens her, and next thing she knows, she's transitioned to heaven or wherever he has for her. And when I read her book, she came out with 2 books. When I read her book, she did have a chapter speaking about death and suicide and what the Father's heart was regarding that. And it was so profound, because it was like not giving anyone permission to take their lives whatsoever. That's not what we're saying. But it was a grace that covered that chapter. Absolutely. It was a grace that he extended to those that did take their life.
Absolutely.
And the way that she explained it, it was just so, like, the revelation that came from it, that he understands. Absolutely. He doesn't punish. That's not a punishment. No, he doesn't, how we grew up in the church.
In the church, exactly.
You take your life, you going to hell.
And nowhere in the Bible does it say that. And that is a lot of conversation that I've had since my husband took his life was, oh, do you think he went to heaven? Oh, absolutely, he's in heaven. But he was raised in the church. His father's a minister. So that was something, too, that they had to start thinking about, and the traditions, the man-made traditions that they used to believe in. So whenever we're thinking about someone taking their life, this is not surprising to God. God knew this. And I believe God gave him the grace to go to heaven, to be in the spirit form and relieved from all the turmoil that he was experiencing here.
Because another part to that within the book is when she went to heaven and she spoke about the young man who did take his life, she was able to come back, whenever she came back into her body, and she met with the mother of that son. So when she was able to share her experience that, your son is in heaven, he's whole, he's this and that, it brought so much peace to that mother. Because oftentimes a lot of people think, oh, was it me? Did I do something? Was I at fault for that person not being able to assist them or help them? So, it's Cat Kerr, Heaven is Real, or something like that. Don't quote me on the title, but that's something that you can look into, because I did read both of her books. Yes.
Love to read
and it's Cat, Katkerr.
Okay, absolutely. I would love to read that book, because prior to my husband's death, I thought, because that's how I was taught, I thought that when you pass away and you take your life, that you're going to hell, until I dug into the word myself. And I had to start reading and meditating on the word to say, where does it say this in the Bible? Yet all along, I was taught man-made tradition that if you take your life, you're going to hell. But nowhere in God's grace does he say that.
So right now, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back more with Jamia, because we're going to actually talk about the foundation or your organization where you raise money to help with mental illness. So we'll be right back. Hey, it's your girl Ashley, and if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Be sure to share, like, tag, and follow. Welcome back to the Life Talk Show. Thank you for staying with us. And so we are still here with Jamia, speaking about her testimony and how she has overcome tragedy into triumph. So Jamia, tell us about, how you're raising money to help you with mental illness.
So NAMI is one of the largest grassroots organizations. NAMI is NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. So they raise money to where all their services are free. So for me, as someone who has been through mental illness with a husband who has lost his life to mental illness, they have support groups for me that I can go to and talk about my tragedy and learn how to just cope and to share my testimony. So each year I raise thousands of dollars for NAMI. They have a walk here in Frisco, Texas, where we do a walk and we raise money all through the year, and I do that. Now this is our 3rd year that I've done that, and we're bringing together people who have lost people to schizophrenia or just other mental illnesses, bipolar, depression, and people who are still living life with the mental illness, and showing people how to live life and being present with those with their families, get them the support, because there's support for people who have the illness, but we have to look at the family that's surrounding that person with the mental illness and how to get them the support that they need to be better equipped to manage the mental illness that's in their family. So NAMI, N-A-M-I, is an association that you can donate to. You donate money, donate your time. And this is not only in Texas. NAMI is around the world. So there's NAMI North Carolina, NAMI South Carolina, NAMI, I believe there's one in Italy. So there's NAMIs all around the world that are trying to get mental health people who are struggling with mental health the help they need.
And how do they donate? Like, do you have a website?
I do. So I have a page that you can go to if you want to donate specifically to me. I can send you that link, but it's NAMI, www.nami.com, NAMI.com, and you can see the different walks going on around the world. This year we did virtual walk, of course, because of the COVID, but there's, yes, ways you can donate. If you just go to NAMI, you want to put that in, N-A-M-I, you can Google it, and you can also find my page if you want to donate specifically to my cause. But you can donate to any NAMI organization around the world. Mm-hmm.
And so tell me, Jamia, based on, the purpose and your journey and everything, what are some of the highlights? Like, what are some of the greatest things that, you've experienced with helping people?
For me, the greatest highlight is seeing people who do not recognize that it's going to be okay. When they're going through trauma like this, where someone has taken their life, or something so quick, where something has just overwhelmed them, it's hard for them to kind of walk through it. They think it's only them. When we have some issues, we think I'm the only one struggling through this. I'm the only one that's been up against this type of battle. But no, we have all walked in this world, and we're all trying to get to the other side. This is not our home. This is just our pass-through. Mm-hmm. Heaven is our home. So we're never going to be comfortable here because we're not meant to be here for too long. So for me, the benefit is knowing that I can kind of tell somebody that today is just today. Tomorrow will come. And although I've faced some traumatic experiences, my God has shown me so much beauty in it, showing me the beauty of seeing someone overcome their experiences with trauma, with loss, with mental illness, or just holding a hand of somebody that just needs to talk about their depression or their anxiety, to say, I have anxiety too. Look at this world we're in. We're all having some type of anxiety or stress at this time, high stress. So for me, it's the ability to hold someone's hand and let them know that it's okay and I'll be here. You call me, you text me, I'm going to be present for you. That is where I find my peace, is knowing that this was all put in place by God. He wrote this out long before I ever came, and that He knew that I was strong enough to persevere through it, and that He gave me this journey.
And one thing that I love is that we're not meant to be alone. No man is an island unto himself. Yes. And the fact that, you're able to encourage people, inspire people, and really pour into people despite what happened to you. And I just really hope that, our audience is being encouraged to say, you know what? It's okay to move forward in life after a tragedy has happened. You don't have to stay stuck, and you definitely don't have to feel like you're by yourself, because the reason why this platform was created, that God, this is God's show. Everything that we do with this show, it's Holy Spirit led. And I just want to, and the Father's heart is to encourage people to say, you're not by yourself. And it's so important for us to begin to listen to people's story, yes, their testimony, because you don't know what you can take away from that. You don't know what you can pull from that to find within your own strength, to find within your own encouragement. Yes. And so thank you for sharing. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I pray that people are pricked just to know that God is still in control, regardless of the trauma that you have experienced. He wrote this for your life because He knows what He has for you. He believes in you. He loves you enough to give you this journey. That's what I believe.
And also to add to that, a lot of times we want the good, right? We just want the blessings. Lord, bless me, good, 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 all of it, right? But also it says that we're to share in His sufferings. Absolutely. There is going to be suffering, whether we like it or not, but it's how you persevere. What are the lessons that you have to learn, and maybe that's to get you on the path that He has for you. Maybe that's the purpose. It always says that, your pain is where your purpose is. I think about Trayvon's mother, Sonia. Yeah, Sonia. How tragedy struck when she lost her son to violence, to a gun. Yes. But now she's running as a councilman in politics within the state of Florida. So we know that God makes all things work together for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose, because we're created for his glory, not the other way around.
And I think just when you say that, there's a Bible verse that says, don't be afraid of the fiery darts. Don't be afraid of these things that has come into your life that you think is trauma, that you think is just going to set you back. It may, but you have to be mindful of where he's taking you. Don't be afraid of the fiery darts. I had to realize that these fiery darts of my husband passing was something that was going to bring benefit to God because of the journey that he has put me on for me and my son to now talk about mental health and to stand for those who are placed under these stigmas of mental illness. We have to understand what pricked my heart. What pricks your heart to say, I'm not going to keep saying that, oh, this person's, crazy because of the mental illness. No, let me help you. Let me love you. What can I do? Show me the way.
All right. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we're about to do our fire rapid questions where I ask in this part of the show my guests 5 icebreaker questions, something that's fun and light, So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I think I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, what is your favorite Bible verse that you go to?
So during this time, it was 2 Peter, as we discussed, as far as growing your faith, adding to your faith, perseverance, godly love, compassion. However, there's another one that I like, Romans 8, that talks about nothing will ever separate me from the love of Christ. No principalities, not highs, not lows. Nothing will ever separate me from his love. So Romans 8 was one of the ones that I really, really spoke to my heart, that nothing, even including my husband's death, his suicide, did not separate him from the love of Christ.
Number 2, what do you think heaven is like?
Oh gosh, heaven is, I think it's beautiful. And I think about how my husband with his mental turmoil is now whole in heaven. He is a whole spirit. He has no more delusions, no more turmoil. I think it's a place where we're able to be us now, finally, and not in the confines of this body, of this fleshly realm that we're in.
Number 3, how do you get into the presence of the Lord?
I get into the presence of the Lord through prayer and meditation every day. For me, it's not just I pray, and I think those who pray, over their food, but for me, it's a constant conversation all day long. From the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm talking to God because I know that He's present with me. So for me, it's a continual conversation. It's like you and I talking. Me and God are talking all day long. Lord, help me to see things right. Purify my heart. Help me to do what you want me to do. Let me operate in your will. Show me how to do that, Lord, throughout the day.
Number 4, wait a minute. Who would you like to meet in the New Testament or in the Old Testament?
Oh gosh. In the New Testament, I would like to meet Eve and to kind of talk about the apple,
Talk about the fruit.
That fruit, exactly, just to get her perspective on things. Yeah. And I would love to meet Jesus. That is, ultimately I will one day. Ultimately, although he's with me, I would love to just sit at his feet.
Last question. Given the opportunity where you're in a quiet, intimate setting and God manifests himself to you, what would you say to him?
I would ask him if he was pleased. Was he pleased with the life that he's given me in the mission? Did I fulfill what he had given me? Are you pleased with my work, Lord?
Wow. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience, whatever the Lord places on your heart?
I just want to share the fact that we are all struggling with something. Everybody has burdens, and we all have crosses to bear for the Lord. As Ashley said, we want the love, we want all the good things. However, we are going to face some trials and tribulations, and how we look at it is based on us. How we persevere through it is based on us. And we have to be mindful of the presence of the Lord, that he is always with us, even when things are completely out of our control and we just don't know where to go. God is with us. He is with you, and he will always stand with you. He loves you more than anything. And I'm just thankful that God has given me the opportunity to share my testimony. And I'm praying for your family And I just want you to know that you will persevere through this. You will survive. Just lean on your faith and add to your faith diligently, and let your calling and your election be sure that you love Christ and you're a follower of him, and he's going to continue to bless you and pull you through anything that you've ever been through.
And I would like to add to that to say that this is the opportunity and the time where I welcome people to begin to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, to taste and see that the Lord is good for yourself. Don't just go based off of what we're saying, because we have our walk and we have our relationship with the Lord and we've accepted him into our hearts. My prayer for you is that you will seek him out, that you would just even begin to ask the question, Lord, are you real? Can you give me a sign? And there's nothing wrong with that. And when he does, and when he manifests himself to you in the way that you can receive, I pray that you would just continue your journey from there and go from glory to glory to glory. So I want to thank my guest, Jamia Chislom, for coming on the Life Talk Show. I also want to thank you too for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. And you all have a wonderful day. Please be safe and remember that a transformed life equals an abundant life.